What's going on, fam? Just wanted to share a little bit about my experience with psychedelics. This is a really controversial topic, especially coming from a former pastor. And just to be clear, this psychedelic experience happened before I became a Christian. I just want to make this disclaimer before we jump into my story. I do not advocate for psychedelic use. I do not advocate for drug use. I think there is danger in the use of these substances. Just want to make that clear. I hear a lot about microdosing and using psilocybin and mushrooms for medicinal purposes. I had done acid, LSD, 3 times, and I did mushrooms, psilocybin, once. I remember I was in a really dark place. I was in a really low place in my life at the time. I was a freshman in college. This was about 7 years ago. Yeah, it was a while ago. I think I was 18 years old. I was at community college. My mother had just moved away to Costa Rica. I had freedom. I was out of a very religious and strict environment, so I kind of just let loose. I got really deep into drugs. I started smoking weed every day, drinking frequently. And I just remember that when my mom moved away, I got to a really dark place. I was just sad about it, reflecting on a lot of my lifestyle decisions. And in my heart, I decided that I wanted to find the truth. I wanted to find out what my purpose was, find out why I'm here on this earth. And I just remember as I'm going through this journey, I was actually making rap music at the time, which is an interesting part of my journey. I'll probably do another video on that. I had been listening to a hip-hop artist. His name is Joey Badass. He was someone I looked up to. I loved his style. It was New York, East Coast, boom bap, hip-hop style. He had shared about his spiritual journey and how he read this book called The Four Agreements. That book was really what started this spiritual journey for me. I began to look at life differently as I started reading books from the author of The Four Agreements. I started reading books on New Age spirituality. As I'm in the midst of this dark season of my life, reading these different books, a guy from high school came to me. We were at the same community college, and he said, "Hey man, I see you're on your journey. I see that you're seeking for truth, and I just want to let you know that if you're interested, I have some LSD. I believe that it can help you on your journey." At first, there was a lot of anxiety. I was not receptive to it at all. I was very closed off to it. I did not want to do that. And basically, out of desperation and again just deepening in this dark part of my journey, I said yes. I have nothing to lose at this point. I think I could benefit from a change in perspective. I've heard that these drugs are really strong, and I was afraid. But I do remember he had organized, along with another person who tripped with me, kind of this journey where there were multiple stops. He was the one driving, almost like a shaman, who led us through this outward experience so that we could experience something internally. I just remember for a while didn't feel anything, but after about 30 minutes or so, once I got into the car, I began to see things moving in a way that I had never experienced, and this feeling started to rush into my body and my mind, and everything felt different. The pinnacle of that journey, or that first trip, was he took us to High Point State Park in New Jersey, which is the highest point of altitude in New Jersey. I just remember feeling on top of the world, feeling like there was no limit to anything that I could do. And really, this was the beginning of the experience. It was such a positive one that I was like, I need to do this again, because I believe that this is the key to unlocking my mind, the key to unlocking the truth of who I am and why I'm here. So eventually, a couple of months later, this is not recommended by the people that I used to do it with. You're supposed to do it once within a year because it's a lot for the mind. I remember it was such a positive experience the first time that the second time I was like, I'm ready to do this thing again. I did it with the person that was the shaman type leader or guide at first, and then another friend. It was also a very positive experience where I felt like there was no limit. We had a music playlist set up for it, because when you do this, it's like your mind becomes like a blank slate where whatever you listen to, whatever you experience becomes impressed in your mind. It's almost like your neural pathways reset, and whatever you experience during that trip creates these new pathways that define who you are and the way that you do life, which again can be very dangerous considering the high likelihood that you may have a negative experience. So yeah, basically the second time around had a positive experience, really just gained an appreciation for children and like childlikeness. I remember this experience of sitting on a bench at a park and seeing vividly this mother with a very smug face. It was almost like a cartoon, just gray, angry, and then you have this child that's just glowing, happy, joyful, and just enjoying life. And seeing that the parent kind of passed on that smugness through interactions with this child, I can almost picture that this child would become like the parent because of the repetition of these experiences. So yeah, that was the second experience. And then the third experience is where it gets really dark. The third experience, I went on a camping trip with 3 friends, and we went on a 21-mile hike and took acid. I remember that on this 21-mile hike, I lost my sense of self. I lost my frame of reference for who I was as a person, and I absorbed everything that was outside of me. All that was around me was trees, woods, and water. I didn't have a connection point of meaning to draw a sense of self to. I completely lost my identity, my sense of self, and it was one of the scariest, most traumatic experiences of my life. I remember a friend pulling me aside and asking me a question to like kind of test where I was mentally, and I couldn't even answer the question. I could tell that he was concerned and I was concerned. This experience was so negative. I just internalized a lot of negativity. It's like your blockage of knowing this is my sense of self. There's nothing separating you between your environment, and it's just like you kind of just become one with everything around you. I remember we ended up getting on this random boat and going on this lake. And again, we don't have any life jackets, we don't have paddles, we don't have anything. We're on this boat and we're just on the water, and we have all our phones and everything on us. I myself didn't even have like a strong sense of balance, like strong control of my body because of this drug. And I remember just being scolded at in like such a way that I internalized it and like made me tremble in fear because I couldn't control my body, and we almost flipped into the water. Eventually we came back and we're walking back to the campsite, and slowly this thing is processing out of my body. I'm feeling it less, and I'm gaining my sense of self back, and I'm listening to music, and it's grounding me, helping me to feel like I have a sense of self again because I have memories connected to those songs that inform my identity. So basically, we got back to the campsite. It was almost dark already, and I remember my friends just started to smoke weed. And I remember that at that point in time, I wasn't really fond of smoking because it made me paranoid, but I ended up just doing it. And it reopened the trip that I was experiencing. And now it was dark, it was cold, and I was just feeling negative energy from the people that I was with, name calling, and a lot of negativity. And I felt the presence of demons surrounding me and consuming me to the point where I almost felt like I couldn't guard myself from these forces. I remember feeling so much pain emotionally and so much darkness coming in. I went into the tent that I was supposed to sleep in, curled up in a ball, and prayed. And I wasn't even a Christian at this time. And I just prayed and I said, God, put me to sleep. And eventually I woke up. And I said, let me just get out of here. I need to go. That's interesting because even on that trip, I had brought a Bible that my mom gave me in my backpack. And it almost felt like a sense of safety for me. It was a grounding technique. It was very interesting because I wasn't really a Christian. I wasn't really invested like that. But for some reason or another, I think at that point in my journey, I was opening up to the possibility of the Bible. Even though I was not a Christian, even though I was studying New Age and I was meditating and learning about chakras and astrology and the signs and all these different things, it was interesting that I still had that kind of there. All those experiences, especially that third one, left me in a traumatized state to the point where I was very fearful and anxious around people. I had social anxiety. I remember working at a restaurant and people would come up to order and my heart would be pounding, just overwhelming my soul, and I didn't know what to do. There was one more thing that happened after all of this. A friend of mine invited me to trip on mushrooms. I'd never done this before, but we had planned on my birthday to go to Grounds for Sculpture, an outdoor museum in New Jersey, to take this thing and to go on my birthday. And I remember I was like, you know what? I've heard positive things about this. I'm never going to do acid ever again. But I ended up going through with this. It didn't really hit me at first. And we started driving to Grounds for Sculpture. And I just remember this overwhelming weight that began to just weigh down on my soul. And I just remember there was a song, and the song was Runaway by Kanye West. My friend played this song that instilled so much fear and anxiety in me again. Just almost re-triggering that same thing that I had experienced with the last acid trip. He played this song, and for those of you guys who are familiar with this song, it starts off with this eerie little piano key that just, keeps, ticking slowly, and eventually it goes into the whole musical composition, but it has this dark vibe to it. And I remember him playing this song, and I was just feeling this weight that was on my soul, and now it was just darkness overcoming me. And I remember looking to the right, and I was sitting in the passenger seat of the car and looking to the right, and there was someone in the car next to us, and the person looked at me with eyes like, oh my goodness, this guy is drugged out, like this guy needs help. And we just kept driving, ended up getting to the place. I literally could not even walk. I remember I tried to get out of the car, and I had almost no control of my body, to the point where I was concerned. There were families going into the museum. If they see this guy who can barely walk, I don't even know what would have happened. I told my friend to turn off the song and change the song to something else, run away. It was just really bad for me. But basically, we get to the place, I can't even walk, and somehow I managed to get myself into the bathroom. And as I'm there, the thing about being on psychedelics is that you draw meaning from things, whether it's music, sayings, or quotes, and you try to find meaning, you try to find purpose in everything, and it's almost like you see everything as an omen or God speaking to you. So as we were driving in, the song that was playing was The World Is Yours by Nas. Some of you hip-hop fans know. I remember once I got to the bathroom, I went to use the bathroom, and I just remember telling myself, these are known as positive triggers in psychology, or grounding techniques, where you'll tell yourself something to help you calm down, or remind yourself of something to help you restabilize. The thing in that moment that I told myself was The World Is Yours from the song by Nas. Something clicked in me, and I almost gained back control of the steering wheel of myself. From there forward, I just felt like I had this really positive experience where I was laughing and enjoying, and everything was vivid, and it was a great time. But then, this is the reality of it, psychedelics make you exert so much brain chemical and endorphin and hormone and dopamine and everything, to the point where once you come down, it's almost like you have nothing left for 6 months after that. And this is how it was for every trip. For months, maybe even close to a year after each one, I would just be apathetic. Everything was gray. Everything sucked. I didn't care about life. The dark place that I was in deepened, and I got to an even darker place. This is where I finally opened up, and I said, I have nothing to lose. I've been against this thing for a while, but I need to seek out this truth, and maybe that truth is in the Bible. I began to read the Bible, in the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs was saying things. It's like I was reading my own life. It's like somebody had been watching my life and was able to say what I had been going through. And most of the time, Proverbs is talking about people who are fools and people who are wise, and what each of their lives look like. My life was the life of a fool. Basically, I started reading the book of Proverbs, and I was like, man, there's actually wisdom in here, because what I'm experiencing right now is literally what this text is talking about. My heart began to open up. I began to see Jesus as this great teacher of what life is really supposed to be like, this great teacher of love. Eventually, time went on, and I said, this is it. God has spoken to me in and through the Bible more than any psychedelic experience, any New Age experience, any meditation, anything else that I've read. And I read through a lot. So yeah, basically, I've been walking with Jesus for about 6 or 7 years now, and I can honestly say that the wisdom and the truth and the knowledge and the guidance I was looking for and all of those things, I found it when I met Jesus. This was a game changer for me. This is what made me realize, hey, truth is a person. Truth is not mere information. Truth is a person, and that's Jesus. He is the perfect embodiment of wisdom. He is the perfect embodiment of love. He is the perfect embodiment of everything I ever wanted. wanted. I ended up getting baptized, gave my life to Christ, and there's a whole journey that came from there. But this video, I wanted to really just hone in on my psychedelic experience. I need to say this very clearly once again, that I do not advocate the use of psychedelics. I think there's a lot of danger in it. I think there's more harm than good that comes from it. You become very sensitive and fragile to the point where anything can kind of tick you off and trigger you into a certain direction that you may not want to go into. But once you're on that ride or on that trip, it's like you're now at the mercy of that drug. There's a lot, but just wanted to share that. I hope that helps somebody. I hope that informs someone. Maybe one of you guys are considering doing this, and I just want to say very clearly, don't do it. There's a lot more wisdom and knowledge you can gain through knowing God for yourself, and it doesn't come with all this pain and all this trauma and all this biological response that comes with it. It doesn't come with a negative package. So yeah, just wanted to share that. I hope that was helpful. Comment below your thoughts or what your experience was like. But, I just want to give some guidance, some support. I also serve as a mental health coach. If you or someone you know are struggling or are just going through a lot mentally, I'm someone you can hire to walk with you through the journey. I'll put the link down in the description. My website is christophermindanao.com. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. We'll talk soon. Peace out.